bills in less than 4 years. And as you're thinking about that number, let me quantify that for you. You heard Tina graciously introduce me as having been one of the lead advocates for the only bipartisan criminal justice reform legislation that was passed during the last administration, called the First Step Act. That one bill alone has released more than 16,000 people from federal prison. When you quantify that numbers, that means that there's more than 500,000 years of human freedom restored back into our communities. That means that during even during the pandemic, you had dinner tables that were set for Thanksgiving. You had presents that were under the tree for Christmas. You had people who were able to experience and take part in national protests as a result of the unfortunate assassination of George Floyd. You have people who are back with their families as a result of that one bill alone. But the work doesn't stop there. The work is inclusive of other bills that we've passed, bills that include dignity for women who are incarcerated. And we've passed about 10 bills or so in 10 different states. And when you quantify those numbers, we have successfully impacted a third of the incarcerated women's population in the United States of America. What that means is that women will no longer, in the states where we have passed bills, they will no longer be shackled while they are pregnant and in labor. No longer will women have to quantify their cycles and beg and scrimp to have sanitary napkins. They will have sanitary napkins given to them free of charge. No longer will women be strip searched by the opposite sex and experience the indignities of that, what you can imagine. And that's not because we are co-founded by Van Jones and Van is such a brilliant political commentary. It's not because we are also co-founded by Jessica Jackson, who happens to be the legal mentor of Kim Kardashian and happens to be a brilliant lawyer. But it's because those closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. But we found that they were also often furthest from resources and power. And so we have people, a network of folks throughout the United States of America that comprise what we call our empathy network. And these people make up the fabric of who we are and the work that we have been able to get done. And so while the lion's share of credit very well may be given to me because I happen to be front facing and I got a few social media accounts that are verified, and I've been able to walk into a few rooms with a few notable people. I always bring the voices of those impacted people into the room alongside with me. And I never let people who are in those rooms, people who have access to influence, affluence, prestige, and power, I never allow them to forget about the Lonnie and Lyle Joneses of the world, two friends of mine who got a total of 4 life sentences for selling low-level crack cocaine offenses, and they were able to be home as a result of the First Step Act. I never allowed them to forget people such as Pamela Wynn, one of our organizers who happens to be based in the state of Georgia, who lost her child, who miscarried her child when she was approximately 6 months pregnant and didn't get appropriate medical care. And to add insult to injury, Pam went inside of federal custody, having had a master's in nursing. I never allow people to forget those such as Topeka K. Sam, who is my sister in the fight, who recently received a presidential pardon from the outgoing president. Who herself experienced indignities while incarcerated. I never let people forget people such as Nicole Martin, who is a Republican, unapologetic Republican in New Hampshire and leads our Empathy Network campaign and our bills in that state, who was sexually assaulted, not just inside of prison, but when she got out of prison, she was sexually assaulted by the same officer. And so I always lift those individuals and the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that we are connected to through the Empathy Network in conversations such as this. So I'll just pause for a brief commercial break and toss it back to Ms. Yvette and to see if whether or not she has any other questions or comments.
Ivy, are there any questions in the chat box that we can respond to? If not, then is there maybe like one question from an audience member right now?
Either I've bored you so much, or you were just astonished at some of the things that I said. But if there are no questions, and I thought,
Rich, do you have a question?
Yes,
Sorry.
please.
Do you have a question, Rich? No. Okay. All right.
I do. My question is, are you working in cooperation with groups such as International Justice? Is it International Justice Mission?
Well, we are not working with them directly, but if you have a line to them, we would love to be connected with them. I direct what the nation's largest bipartisan coalition through the Empathy Network, a coalition of impacted organizers and advocates. And when we're talking about impacted, we're talking about people impacted by the criminal justice system. And so, you know, our theory of change is number one, legislation through humanization. We humanize the voices of people impacted by the issue. You've never heard me refer to anybody as an inmate. You never heard me refer to anybody as an ex-con. I've never met those individuals during my nearly 14 years of incarceration. Who I did meet, I met mothers, I've met fathers, I met brothers, I met sisters. I've met children of incarcerated parents who themselves happen to be incarcerated. I met a wealth of genius of people who happen to have their lives diminished by a prison sentence. And one of the things that I walked away from that experience understanding was this: number one, my history is not necessarily my destiny. Mm-hmm. Number two, the subtotal of someone's life should not be reduced down to a moment of irresponsibility. I mean, you think about it. Many of us who probably never seen the inside of a prison cell, who may not ever know what it's like to have steel handcuffs placed on you. But some of us, if not all of us, have done something that probably qualified us to be in prison. In a moment of time, you may have, drank a little bit too much and drove from one place to another. And it's only by the grace of God that someone wasn't killed in the process. You may have had a fight with a family member and the police weren't notified about it. And that person probably was seriously injured, if not. But all of us have been in some position at some point in time in our lives where we didn't deserve the grace that was extended to us, that did not put us in a situation where even if we wasn't in a prison cell necessarily, at the very least, we wasn't handicapped by the stigma and by the collateral consequences that come with one felony conviction. And so, outside of our theory of change in terms of humanization through legislation, we also work with unlikely allies for a common purpose. And that common purpose is to close prison doors and open doors of opportunity for anybody. Okay, anyone else?
Sorry.
Okay, cool. So as we...
Bob, did you have a question?
Yeah. I was so do you do programs for after people get out of prison as well in terms of job creation and support and that sort of thing, or housing and those kind of issues as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So personally, I cut my teeth, so to speak, in reentry. What you're talking about is reentry. And when you think about criminal justice reform, it's like a 3-year-old trying to wrap her arms around an elephant. It's just too big. You have dignity for incarcerated women, you have conditions of confinement, you have juvenile justice, you have juvenile lifers, you have abolished the death penalty, you have closed all prisons across the United States of America, you have prison reform, you have crack cocaine reform, you have reentry. Within reentry, you have subcategories, you have employment, you have housing, you have mental health, so on and so forth. And so we're only one shop. We can't do it all. And our specific focus is on policy, legislation, right? We are the people who get the folks out of prison. And, as best we can, we try to give them opportunities to be home. One of the things that I always say is that even without anything, my worst day in the street is better than my best day on the inside. I'm just one of those people who come from that space in life where, I can turn a 2 into a 10. If you give me a straw, I'm like MacGyver. You got to be older than 30 to really appreciate who MacGyver is. But I'm like MacGyver. You could give me 2 straws, a shoelace, and a shirt button, and I'm gonna make it happen. And so we're one of the, what we do is we focus on getting people free from prison. Now there are, tens of thousands of organizations out there who do focus on what you were talking about as it relates to reentry, right? Connecting those individuals to employment. But I want to talk to you about, and I'm glad that you raised that up, because I want to talk to you about that. Most people think that there's this panacea of the sort that when an individual has employment, then poof, all is well in the world. Can I tell you a secret just between us? I went on approximately 50 job interviews before I landed the one job that springboarded me into the career that I wanted to be in. And so when we're talking about employment, are we talking about jobs or are we talking about careers? Then we also have to understand that there are legislation that needs to be built into what employment looks like. So for instance, in the state of Connecticut, where I'm from, I worked on legislation that called for licensure, not called for licensure, but that reduced the restrictions for licensure for people in certain industries. Let me explain that to you. If you were incarcerated in the Department of Corrections in the state of Connecticut, and if you were a barber, or if you were a cosmetologist, or if you were an eyelash person, ladies, help me out. I don't know what that's, I don't know the nomenclature for that, right? But in any event, if you worked in the, if you were credited, if you were incarcerated, you were able to get good time credit as a result of participating in those programs. But then you get home and you go to the Department of Public Health and you try to get vocational licensure. They would arbitrarily deny your license that the Department of Corrections found good enough. The training, the vocational training was good enough in order for you to get a reduced sentence. But the Department of Public Health denied you licensure arbitrarily because you had a felony conviction. Wait, you didn't have a felony conviction because you jacked somebody's head up. You didn't have a felony conviction because you got upset with somebody that they baby daddy was messing around with your girlfriend's uncle's cousin's little sister and glued their eyelid shut. You didn't get arrested for that. You don't have a conviction for that. You got a conviction for potentially selling narcotics, or you got a conviction for sex trafficking, or you got a conviction for something that was completely unrelated to the field, yet the Department of Public Health was denying you simply because you had a felony conviction, which raises the larger conversation. One felony conviction has more than 46,000 collateral consequences. We're talking about housing, we're talking about employment, we're talking about in some states you can't get access to Pell Grants, in some states you can't have access to Department of Social Services, you can't, like the list is ad infinitum. It is absolutely astounding. So when we're talking about employment, you need legislation that looks like a Clean Slate Act. You might say, what does a Clean Slate Act look like? Well, I'm going to explain that to you. I'm glad that you asked that question. Clean Slate Act essentially is this. If a person has a misdemeanor conviction, or if a person has a felony conviction, and if you have a misdemeanor conviction that is more than a year old and you apply for housing, or if you apply for employment, if you apply for social services, et cetera, and there hasn't been any intervening convictions, that misdemeanor conviction should not be held against you. Your record should automatically be expunged and sealed from the public site. Now, on the back end, if there is some, legal other intervening arrest and conviction, then the courts can have access to that. But from the public's perspective, there should be no record of it, and or 3 years for a felony conviction. That is equity. That is just. We live in the United States of America, where the chief cornerstone of this country was founded on second chances. The chief cornerstone of the spirit of this country, if not in practice, but it was founded on the opportunity to have a springboard to success rather than navigating through trapdoors to failures. And so if we are really going to be a land of the free. What does free mean? How can I be free if something that I was convicted of more than 20 years ago keeps becoming the topic of conversation 20 years later? How can I be free? When here it is, I've earned 2 degrees. I got more degrees than a thermometer. I've been on world stages with presidents and influencers, so on and so forth. But I apply for a job at Stop and Shop or the local grocery store or somewhere. In all labor, there is dignity. But you know, if I apply for an employment, irrespective to how prestigious or how frontline it may be, I'm going to be denied because of something that happened X amount of time ago. That is not our country. That is not who we are. That is not us walking into the spirit of being the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan, if you think about that, let me just preach a little bit, if I can, on this Sunday afternoon, especially considering I'm missing about an hour of worship. When we thinking about the Good Samaritan, the spirit of the Good Samaritan is not necessarily about the person who was hurting. The spirit of the Good Samaritan is about the person who got off of his place of privilege.
Yeah.
He got off of his horse. He stepped out of his privilege. He stepped out of his level of entitlement. And he was touched by the feelings of the infirmities of somebody who needed aid. And then he got the bag. Like how the young people say, I'm chasing the bag. He went in his own bag and covered the expenses of the person who was injured. He never asked, how did you become injured? He never said, you must have brought this on yourself. He never asked, what were you doing on this Jericho road? And you probably were up to no good. He never asked, why was you walking on this Jericho road and wearing the things that you were wearing to attract attention to yourself so that you could be robbed? He never asked any of those questions. He responded to the need of those who are least among us. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, I was doing an interview, a news interview, and they were saying, had asked me, they said, Lewis, we had interviewed this person who talked about criminal justice reform, and they spiritualized it. And he said, before we go, he said, what is the greatest miracle that you think Jesus did? And I said, well, I'm not trying to proselytize anybody, and I'm not trying to evangelize anybody, but in my mind, it wasn't healing the Samaritan woman, and it wasn't healing the woman who had the issue of blood and who was hemorrhaging for approximately 12 years. And it wasn't raising Lazarus from the dead, as miraculous and as dramatic as those things were. But if you look at something that Jesus has in common, irrespective to whether your political persuasion, your theological orientation, etc., Jesus shared something in common that all of us have or will have. It was a dying declaration. And in his dying declaration, he spoke to 2 people who were outcasts, who were convicted by society. And he said, in essence, whatsoever you do unto the least of these, those individuals who have been ostracized, those individuals who have been in prison, you've done also unto me. And he said, verily, verily, surely you will be with me today in paradise. And so he didn't look beyond those individuals who had been convicted by society. And so if we are going to rise to our better selves, if we are going to be better than before, what we saw happen approximately 2.5 weeks ago at the Capitol, that was a dress rehearsal. That was a dress rehearsal for what potentially could happen on a larger scale, heaven forbid, if we don't get our act together. And so if we are going to be better than before, whether you are Black, whether you're white, whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you fall anywhere in between on that spectrum, if we are going to be better than before, then it's going to take all hands to be on deck, to lift us out of this issue of mass incarceration that we have found ourselves into. Miss Yvette.
Thank you, Lewis. I think there are a few questions in the chat. Is that right, girls?
Yes.
If you guys can start asking those questions, I think we'll just go from there.
Yeah, okay, so I have quite a few here for you, Lewis. If we can just get like a quick few rapid fire answers if possible to try to get everybody in. But Richard is asking if we can hear a little bit about the legislation that you're working on now, if there is any. He says, I read that Cory Booker introduced the Next Step Act. What is the status of that, and is Mr. Lewis working on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So number two, we're working on one of several things. Number one, we are looking at a federal version of what I talked about as it relates to a Clean Slate Act. We want to make sure that people have opportunities in mass after they are released from incarceration. As it relates to the Next Step Act, that didn't pass in the last legislative cycle, or in the last Congress, I should say, but we can anticipate that will be picked up. And that is heavy on programming, not for people who are on the inside, but also giving people access to things who are on the outside as well. So we will be supporting that bill. We are also going to be supporting the George Floyd Policing Act, ensuring that our communities are safe. Ensuring that, police have body cams all across the country, ensuring that, ensuring that there's an incentive not to arrest our way out of issues. I think that, and I'm going to go on maybe a 17-second tangent, but I have to say this. The Department of Corrections and our police departments across the country, they are the only institutions that are rewarded for failure. That might sound astonishing to you, but let me break it down. If you are arrested on a Thursday and you go into the Department of Corrections or the county jail on that Friday after you're arraigned, and you come back on a Tuesday with 3 of your friends, the Department of Corrections and or that police department gets more funding as a result of such in the next fiscal year, because there's a projection of how many people are going to be inside of their custody or what resources they are going to need to police their neighborhoods based off of those last year's projections. And if that was business, if that was a business model, we would have ran them out of town. They are the only institutions in our communities in the business sector where we reward for failure. And so we need to be incentivizing them, not for how many arrests that you can make, but how many alternatives to incarceration recommendations and or referrals you can make as well. And so that is going to be a component of the George Floyd Policing Act that we will be supporting. Next question.
Thank you so much. Kate asks, what do you find to be the most helpful way to humanize those who are typically dehumanized?
Great question. Great question. Language. Language influences perception. Perception influences policy. Person-centered language. Put the person before the issue. Lewis shouldn't be formerly incarcerated person Lewis L. Reed. Lewis L. Reed, who happened to be formerly incarcerated. But that the sum total of who I am is not simply being formerly incarcerated. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm somebody's baby daddy, I'm somebody's son. Like, there's somebody who loved me. Whether you like me or not, there's somebody there's at least 2 people out there who love me, probably on a Sunday afternoon. It depends on what side of the bed my parents wake up on. But I'm somebody's family member. Somebody loves me. And so if we could work on our language influences perception, perception influences policy. Great question. Next question.
Jack asks, just reading about the First Step Act, amazing work. My question is, and sorry if this is broad, but could you briefly explain the process of getting new legislation passed with the First Step Act?
I don't think that we have enough time. I mean, you think about it. We were talking about Donald Trump, who ran on crime and carnage, was trying to resurrect Willie Horton, the 2.0 version of him. You had Jeff Sessions at the time, who was the U.S. Attorney General, who was so far focused from reform and was actually repealing the Obama era reform strides that the Attorney General's office had made. There's just not enough time. Like I'm just going to say, you're gonna have to read it. You're gonna have to read about it when my book comes out. But what I can tell you is that it was the spirit of the people. And this is going to sound very cliche, but the people in power is never greater than the power of the people. And, you know, my grandmama used to say the worst that anybody can tell you is no. The worst that anybody can tell you is no. And we wouldn't take no for an answer. Those of us who fought to get that bill across the finish line, we refuse to take no for an answer. And when you come from the bottom, when you come from ramen noodles and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every night, you know, when you come from nearly 14 years in federal prison, when you come from strip searches and having to eat honey buns with layered with peanut butter, when you come from nothing, you can make that nothing into something. And so I had already been told no 1,000 times through motions that I have filed to try to get out of prison early. And the other advocates who organized with me around the First Step Act, we have been told no, we've been told hell no, we've been told don't come back. And we were just refused to take it for an answer until we got a yes.
Awesome. Ruth Ann asks, have you compared to other countries' justice systems and how backwards we are in comparison? And then she said that in Norway, a man murdered his sister and was convicted and then served time and was given support to return to society.
Look, the United States of America makes up 5% of the world's population, 5% of the world's population, but we make up 25% of the world's incarcerated population. We imprison more people than China. They have about 700 billion people over there. we incarcerate more people than China. So, you know, while the United States very well may be leading in humanitarianism, and we may be leading as the world superpower in terms of military might, and we may be leading in technological advances, and we may be leading in other areas of life, I can tell you we are failing miserably when it comes to educating more than we incarcerate. We spend more than $80 billion on incarceration annually. We spend a fraction of that on education. So while we may be leading in these other areas and we may be able to pat ourselves on the chest and say, yes, we are, you know, the red, white, and blue. We are, you know, the world's superpower. Look to us as that light on the hill. I can tell you that we are in a cave of darkness when it comes to leading on rehabilitation more than incarceration.
Our next question is from Richard. How much of the Clean Slate Act reform, expunging records, allowing access and resources, can be or must be achieved at the state level, and what can be achieved at the federal level? Does that complicate efforts to bring about this kind of reform? Are there steps individuals can take to promote these ideas to our state legislators?
Without question, that is probably the best question that I've heard today so far. That really tickles my fancy. So here's the thing: the federal prison population only makes up approximately 10% of our national incarcerated population. So the majority of folks who are incarcerated and will be released from incarceration are on the state level. And so you think that Congress is muddled and hamstrung in red tape. Your state houses are that even the more. And so what I have proposed with people is that if you lead on a city level, and this is going to, be a little bit strategic from a policy perspective, but if you lead on a city level, then ultimately the state leaders will follow suit. Let me give you an example. If you have a state legislature who refuses to take up a version of the Clean Slate Act, and let's say a state like New York. Okay, cool. What you can do is you can get the mayor to adopt a version of the Clean Slate Act on a city government basis. It's not legislation, but it's policy. So if a mayor says, hey, I'm going to adopt this clean slate policy for my city, and if we do that in New York City, and then if we do that in the city of Albany, then if we do that in the city of Rochester, and if we do that in the city of Syracuse, then the leading cities, the largest cities in the state, if they are rising up and they're saying we are going to lead on this from a policy perspective, then the individuals who represent that constituency on the state level, then they'll have to follow suit. And so it's one of those inside outside games that you have to get sophisticated with, where if the state won't take it up, then you convince the chief executive officer of the city to say, hey, if they won't do it, if they don't have the courage to do it at our state house, then what we're going to do is do it in our city halls. And everybody within my purview, and as we give government jobs and as we give housing opportunities, so on and so forth, we will implement a clean slate policy in my administration. And then ultimately what you can do is put pressure on the state government and allow them to follow.
Okay, we just have 3 more questions. I think that'll probably take us to the end, but I'm not sure what your name is. It says exam, but what was your name? Oh, Pam, okay. What do we need to do? Oh, sorry, no, that was not. Okay, should those who marched on the Capitol be incarcerated?
Should those who marched on the Capitol be incarcerated? No. Those who marched on the Capitol should not be incarcerated. They should be protected by free speech. They should be protected by the right to protest for right. Those people who committed insurrection on the Capitol, that's a different question, because they committed insurrection in the spirit of racism. They committed insurrection in the spirit of partisanism, and they also committed insurrection in the spirit of everything that goes against our democracy. Now, if they are going to be incarcerated, does it mean that that incarceration should be unjust? Should it be inequitable? And should it be unfair? That is the question that is suspended in the air. Should it be that a person who did commit insurrection, because that person happens to be white, because that person happens to come from a place of privilege, should that person receive a sentence that is lesser than their Black counterparts? That is what we should be listening for. That is what we should be looking for. And so should those individuals who marched on the Capitol should be arrested? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But should those people who committed insurrection, should they have the process that is due to them? And should they work their way and allow their case to traverse through court with equity and justice that is going to be comparable to their Black or brown counterparts, their Black, brown, and poor white counterparts? That's without question.
Thank you so much. Kate asks, what do we need to do to interrupt the school to prison pipeline?
That is something that we have been attempting to do for I don't know how long. Number one, we got to take school resources, so-called school resource officers out of schools. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we have to stop criminalizing behavior that is age appropriate, especially those behaviors as it relates to Black and brown students. We got to stop criminalizing it. If a child acts out in class, that is not an arrestable offense. That is a child being a child. When a child acts out in at home, the parent doesn't call the cops. The parent doesn't call the cops and say, you're not gonna go to your room. Let me just call the police. No, we have to give the breath and we have to give the grace for children to be children. That is what is going to happen. And so what we need to do is we need to stop criminalizing juvenile behavior. It is what it is. The second thing to do is we need to take these school resource officers out, and we need to have more social workers. We need to have people who are trained in child psychology in our schools. Let the teachers teach and let the social workers social work. That is what we need to do. And I guarantee you that I can bet a dime to a dollar if we were to do that, and if we were to adopt a version of that model, we would see the school to prison pipeline being reduced.
Thank you so much. And then finally, this is a good question to wrap us up. based on what you have shared today, what is your advice to each of us in terms of activism in our respective areas?
Here we go. So I'm going to task you to type in as I am talking. We are organizing what we call our National Day of Empathy. The National Day of Empathy is the largest day of action around criminal and social justice reform. That is going to be on March 2nd. You want to be involved with us? You want to change history? You want to change the trajectory of somebody's destiny? You want to help us change laws? You can do it simply. All you got to do is text the word empathy to 97483. Text the word empathy to 97483. Let me say that one more time for the people in the back. In the event, if you had Cricket Wireless, if your internet is not working, if you got the Jigaboo phone, etc., you can text the word empathy to 97483. 97483. You can also follow me on any social media channels. On Instagram, I am at He Inspires, the number 4 real. He Inspires for real on Instagram. On Twitter, you can also follow me at Louis L. Reed. Instagram at He Inspires, the number 4 real, and I'm on Twitter at Louis L. Reed. Louis, just how you see it in the bottom left corner of my name, at Louis L. Reed.
Thank you so much. And that was our last question. I put all that information in the chat. Please text empathy to 97483. And then all of his social media handles are in the chat.
Louis, we so appreciate you spoke from a heart of passion. It was so obvious. And just thank you for your time and for missing that hour of church, but you did preach. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking from the heart it always just resonates so much with me. And thank you guys for your questions and just for being here. And we're all in this place of learning and participating. So I am going to encourage you to please reach out to him for this Day of Empathy. And I think we'll just have a continuation of growth and understanding of what's going on in our world without all the assumptions that we find ourselves in sometimes.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being such an active and interactive audience. I appreciate you. And
Thank you so much.
Shout out to your granddaughters and your grandson for being so involved in this. I love to see people who are about 2 weeks younger than myself, involved in the process. So I appreciate you. Thanks so much. You guys are not the next generation of leaders. You guys are this generation of leaders.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
And I would also like, before you leave, Louis, I'd also like to say that this is an arm of our indivisible group, of which I am chairperson in the town where we live. And there are several team members that are supportive of this initiative that I don't want to leave without introducing you to. So if you guys would mind introducing yourselves, please, and just let them know what position what your position is in the indivisible group here in Crystal Lake. That would be awesome. Let's start with John.
Hi, Louis. Thank you very much. I'm John Cavalunas. I'm the immigration facilitator for our group.
Good to meet you, John. Thanks so much. Thanks for everything that you're doing.
Okay, Bob.
I'm Bob Schreier, and I'm the environmental facilitator for our group. And I really appreciate your time and your passion that you shared with us today, John.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Rich.
Hi, Louis. Thank you so much for an amazing, inspirational, powerful, transformative presentation. It was amazing. My wife, Blair, is also here. We're both part of the team. She works on the website. I work in education. And here she is. There's her hand.
Hey, Blair.
But thank you so much for being here, for stepping away from your worship and really motivating us to be as powerful and best as we can be.
Well, I'll say this. I appreciate you, and I appreciate Blair as well. But I didn't step away from anything. I actually stepped into a greater level of worship with you guys. When you think about worship, you don't necessarily have to be on your knees at the altar. It's about us being in community with each other. And
Amen.
I'm appreciative of being able to break bread, intellectual and heart bread with you guys today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kate? You're muted, Kate.
Is Kate your sign interpreter? Because she's muted.
I think she could be, actually.
Hi there, my name is Kate Katrubis, and I am the diversity facilitator. And this has been an incredible honor, so thank you so much. Especially during these past 4 years, I can't imagine the uphill battle, constantly working to create humanity in a place where it has not been welcomed for a long time. So that work is essential and crucial, and I want to learn even more. So I already did my text. So, but thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much. Let me also say this as well, just to touch on the last 4 years. There are certain things that are necessary. There are certain evils that are necessary. I think that many of us, the 8 years prior, many of us got very lethargic. We got drunk on stagnation. And so I think that we needed a wake-up call, that we were not where we thought that we were. And so oftentimes, life will raise up a pharaoh to demonstrate not just our own inner ability, but it will also serve as a reflection of our humanity as well. And, I believe it was Michael Jackson who sung a song back in '88. He said, "I'm looking at the man in the mirror, man." And, I'm asking him to change his ways. And I think that over the last 4 years, we have had this inescapable mirror right before our eyes and asking us, what are we going to do about it? And then the moment that we try to turn our face to the left, or the moment that we try to put some makeup on, or the moment that we try to, not look like how we look at 5 o'clock in the morning when you wake up with a bonnet on your head and and looking all crazy. The moment that we thought that we were pretty and that we didn't have to look at ourselves as hard as we needed to, there was an incident that happened in May of 2020 on a Minneapolis street. And it caused the entire world to take a look at herself and see, how am I responding to this person that's in the mirror? And the person that's in the mirror who doesn't look like me, who may not sound like me, who may not have the same experiences that I have. But the fact of the matter is that that person is a person. And I think that the last 4 years, it was a necessary evil of the sort so that we could get to where we are now and we could be springboarded into where we need to be.
Thank you. There's another group of people I'd like to introduce also, and this is a team that I have just really come to love, and I use that word with them freely. It's a Move On team. We were called Mobilize to Win, and we had the opportunity to make phone calls into Georgia every day. I mean, every day for hours. And in a situation like that, you get to know the people because we speak up. We had the opportunity. So I would like for each of you to say who you are and just what's on your heart as far as this meeting is concerned. And thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Let's start with you, Pam. Okay.
It's Pam. I am a retired physician, and since I'm retired, I actually have time to do a lot of political work finally. First of all, I want to just thank you, Louis, for just this great seminar. I really like the comment you said at the very end there, because I really experienced when I was working on the Georgia campaign, even though I thought I was anti-racist, dealing with the primarily African-American community that I was calling, just gaining a new profound appreciation for the historical suppression and the patience and cultural history that the African American community has. And I grew up in the South. I grew up in a very redneck community, but I was raised as an anti-racist. But I really, the last comments you made about how we don't look in the mirror and really truly have empathy for people who are other than us. That experience in Georgia really drove that home to me. And I really am resolving to work on that more and to really explore a lot more of the history of African-American cultural racism that has just gone on forever. And I really do feel I gained a new appreciation for it and a new commitment to really myself as a racist, because I think that I do still have racist tendencies, even though I've really tried my whole life not to. And I think that it's really important for all of us to really look at, really deep into our souls at the racism that we still have, if, especially if we're white. So thank you so much for this. I appreciate it.
I appreciate
Thank you. Thank you for your honesty. That's really is touching for me. I just remember too, calling into Georgia, and it was a great reminder of the foundation that African Americans have always stood on, and that is the church. And some people don't want to hear us talk about that, but that's really what we know, because that's how we stay together. There was those night meetings, and sometimes in secret. But the secret was just praying with hope that, tomorrow's going to be better. And if tomorrow wasn't better, we would still keep praying and hoping. So that goes on today. And I heard that so much when I made those phone calls into Georgia. Don't worry about this. We got it. God's in control. It was an awesome reminder. And then to hear stories about the pastor of the church is getting vans of people together and going through getting vans and going through neighborhoods and calling people out of their apartments and houses and say, you know what, you need to get registered. We're going to take you to the vote, get registered, and then we're going to take you to the polls to vote. That's what I remember growing up in Texas also, when my parents were not even, didn't have the freedom that I had to vote today. They had to pay the poll tax to vote. And so just the idea of being in a group that's concerned about other people. I'm in Illinois. I don't know where you're living now, but and Stacy's in Colorado. We were from all over the place calling into Georgia because we care. And another thing I would say too is that no one has arrived yet as far as understanding how to become an anti-racist. We're all still learning. So Pam, I applaud you for your honesty, because that's what we need. And until we can really say that with all the passion you spoke with, we're going to have a problem. And I would say right now, I want you on my team, because you realize what's needed and you're speaking truth to power. So I appreciate that. I didn't mean to take over your comment, but I had to say that. So I want you to know we heard you. Sometimes people speak and we just let it go by, but I heard you and I see your face and I heard you speak on those calls quite often. And that was so encouraging to me. So thank you. Okay, Casey, I'm sorry. And you're
hi there, I'm Casey. I'm in Colorado, and I just had a comment. I wanted to thank you all for putting this together, and thank you, Louis, for everything you had to say. It goes so well with my 14-year-old daughter's taking a class in school right now that's called Incarcerated America, and so much of what she's learning just touched on exactly what you were talking about, and they're doing some really amazing work and reading some great books, and that generation just kind of gives me hope, because I certainly didn't have a class like that when I was 14 years old. And I want to keep doing the work. So I'm going to send the text, and hopefully that's going to give me some action items. And I just really appreciate being here. Thanks, Evelyn, for inviting me.
Thank you. Okay, and Matt, I have to tell you guys about this dude. Okay, I was thinking one time when Matt was talking, because he's so cool and calm and collected. And I was thinking if he was in my classroom, he'd probably be the teacher's pet. I really thought that one time when he was talking. I don't mean to bring you down to a kid's level, Matt, but that's just the way I feel about you. Go for it.
Well, I did have my hand raised in class a lot, if that's any conversation. But I just want to say thank you for inviting me, and I apologize for being late. My Sunday got away from me, and I really appreciate hearing from Mr. Reed. So thank you for all the info that you shared, and thank you to your family, Ms. Evelyn, for putting this together. And I'm in Rochester, New York, and I'm absolutely an ally. And just in case, I think you guys all know this, but Ms. Evelyn is so inspiring. I would follow her anywhere. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Matt.
Oh, Miss E, I actually, I gotta hop in a second, but I do want to say this. Casey, is that your name? Casey. It's interesting that how you said your children or your 14-year-old daughter is having that course, which is extremely progressive, because when I was 14, I actually had a course in the criminal justice system, but that came vis-a-vis as a result of me having had a juvenile record. And so I got a crash course, right, in our criminal justice system. And when I was 5 years old, both of my parents were incarcerated. And even before I got to that 14-year high school graduate course of the sort, I had an introductory course into our mass incarceration system when I was 5 years old. And so that gives me hope. That gives me encouragement. That gives me a sense of like, we're on the right path. Mm-hmm. We're on the right path, right? To being where we need to be, to changing hearts and minds. And I'm just looking forward to 10 years from now, when your daughter, prospectively might be the youngest person, the youngest, lawmaker, or the youngest whatever in your state, in the first from your family, who's going to rise up and say, nah, we're not doing this anymore. That was then, this is now, and we're going to change the tide, and we are going to change the trajectory of people who are incarcerated. So I appreciate that. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Do you have to hop off, Louis?
Yeah, I do have to hop. I got my mama. My mama got 9 sisters, and so. But as I was talking to you, I realized I kept calling you Miss Yvette. My aunt, his name is Yvette, and she keeps texting me like, "Where are you? You're supposed to be around for Sunday dinner." And I can't tell them, "Hey, I'm doing CNN right now. I don't care about no CNN." So that's how my aunties are. So I have to hop, right, because I do got aunts that care nothing about who I'm talking to, so long as I'm supposed to be around. But look, I appreciate all of you guys, and let's make sure that we stay connected.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and I'll be in touch.
I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to continue. I don't want anyone to feel left out. That's just my personality and the right thing to do. So let's go to Ruth Ann.
I'm sorry, I had to reconnect. What is the question?
Just share a little bit about, I don't remember, I think you were on the calls with us, right? To Georgia? Yes.
Oh, no.
Are you here because of Shelley?
I'm here because it showed up on my Facebook.
Oh, awesome.
I've never known you people before. I've never heard of you people before, but I am so on board.
Awesome. You're included. Tell us about you then.
My background is, I was the one asking the international questions because I grew up in Germany. And to put it bluntly, I was born there short 12 years after the war ended and racism was illegal. Things I've seen here have just blown my mind, because there is racism, but it's not the same. It's not brutal. They may treat, for example, the biggest group that was ostracized while I was in Germany was people from Turkey. They were the guest workers, so to speak, that came put their money back to their families. They might disregard them or not consider them equal. They never treated them like I've seen here.
Mhm.
And what I've learned in the last year and a half is just, it's shaken me to the core. And it's something that I've become very passionate about. And I'm trying to figure out how to devote the rest of my life to changing that.
Awesome. Let's see. We'd like to stay in touch with you too.
Thank you.
Where are you located? If you
I'm in
can.
Hoffman Estates.
In where?
Hoffman Estates.
Are you really?
Yes.
I'm in Crystal Lake.
Very cool.
Awesome. Oh, you've got to connect with us, please. We need you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see, how can we do this? Our email address, I can say this, is indivisible, NWIL at the end @gmail.com.
Okay.
Indivisible Northwest Illinois, because we're northwest of the city, not because we're Northwest Illinois, at gmail.com. Please stay in touch. Would love to chat with you more. And thank you. Let's see, I've missed someone. I know I have. You guys have all spoken. Okay, let's go to Jack. Oh, there's Kay. Kay.
Good afternoon. I am in the dark. There's a little light
may I
for
introduce
us.
you before you start talking, Kay?
Absolutely.
This lady, not that I need, you're all on the same level of special with me, but Kay and I started in August, was it? Introducing new people. We didn't know what we were doing, but we did it every single day. Our job was to introduce new people, make them feel welcome on our Mobilize to Win app through moveon.org. But what was so fascinating with Kay was her, she's from the South. And I think I told her, oh my gosh, I love that sound. Love it. And so this connection with the Southern atmosphere, I guess. So Kay, take it.
So I'm honored to even get here today. I had a calendar snafu. The reminder came in too late for me to join in time, and I had this on my calendar all week. I invited people from Mississippi to come, so I'm not sure digitally what happened, but I hope the sessions are recorded so that I can catch up. But honored to be a part of anything that Miss Evelyn has going on. Currently very involved with one incarcerated gentleman of the age 18 who had one class to finish before he graduated. And I've known the child since he was in 3rd grade through a program at the university where I work. And teachers identify kids who potentially may or look like they could struggle to finish high school. And so they identify at 3rd grade, which is when we can start to know that we need other kinds of intervention. And by that, I mean maybe an ethnocentric African-American curriculum, perhaps. Something simple can change a child's life from prison for the rest of it. And having an engaging history or civics curriculum can do the trick. But we're reticent to do that all over the country, and specifically in the rural South. So I find myself going to court tomorrow for a felony committed by this, or accused to have been allegedly committed by this child of 18 years old tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And I have assembled a group of pastors who are prepared to surround this family and provide interventions for whatever time the child is not in confinement, which means living in home on house arrest, which he has been for the last 12 months. So the crime occurred in January of 2020, and I've been helping him get through his last course to graduate high school, which is an English 4 course, and I am an English teacher in my first career. So I really want to hear the speech that I've missed today, and then stay in touch with the group. So that's a long but very specific thing that I have to share with you today. And I'm just delighted to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Kay. And I I think there's information as far as staying in touch with Lewis that's in the chat, right, Ivy? Okay, if you take a look in the chat, Kay, you can stay in touch there, but I will keep you informed on our next presentation also, which is
Great.
also going to be connected with Lewis.
Great.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And there was a question in the chat about Paul and Ivy and Zoe. So off to you guys. I'm sorry, Miss Jack. Is Jack still here? Or did he log off?
He had to sign off, yeah.
Okay, okay. All right. Sorry about that. So let's just start with Paul then, and you guys can tell them who you are and what you do. And then I think that will be the end of it today.
Yeah, so I'm a math teacher, I'm an educator. I teach 7th and 8th grade algebra here in Miami, Florida. Also involved through Teach for America with some other policy initiatives or community boards I'll be sitting on very shortly.
And I would also say that Paul is going to be very modest about this, but he was an intern with the Congressional Black Caucus. Was it last year, Paul, or?
Yes, last summer.
Last summer, and worked very closely with Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
Patricia Wilson, but yeah, I see Ms. Barbara Lee.
Yeah, so that was awesome. Okay. All right, Zoe.
Hi, everyone. I am Zoe. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Mimi's granddaughter. I am a high school dance teacher here in Dallas, Texas.
All right, and Ivy.
Hello, I'm also Mimi's granddaughter. I am a television writer in Los Angeles.
Love that. Love these girls, love you guys. And we had one more person to sign on, Michelle. We were just getting ready to conclude. And so go for it, Michelle. We just want to know who you are, where you're calling in from. You might be muted. No, you're not muted. You're breaking up just a little bit.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I think it's not great.
Yeah, it's not clear at all.
Can you hear me better now?
Much better. Yes, thank you.
Okay. My name is Michelle. I'm calling from Los Angeles. I run an indivisible group here. And I'm also a digital state director for Field Team 6. So I am committed to racial justice.
Oh, that's awesome. I need to make contact with you then. Which group are you with in California, in LA?
Northridge Indivisible. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because
Sure.
I'm chairperson of Indivisible Group here in Crystal Lake.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I really want to connect with you then.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, let's see. I don't want to miss anybody. Did I get everybody? Blair hasn't said anything. And she just says hi. Okay, Rich.
She deserves credit for having asked the question that Lewis really liked, said it was the best question. That was hers. Not mine. I can't claim any credit.
Oh my gosh, she's good at that. I have to.
I've always said she's better looking and smarter. So.
Oh, guys, this has been one of the best events that we've had in a long, long time. It's been so good to have you guys here. And I will also just let you know that our next event is going to be February 21st. And the girl that introduced Lewis, the attorney, she's going to be our guest speaker. So, and you don't want to miss her. She's equally as good as Lewis, I'll say it that way. She has tons of experience, and what we're going to be looking at, we're going to be right at toward the end of African American History Month. And so the focus this year is on the family. And we want you guys to come back. It's going to be a continuation of kind of what Lewis is talking about, and yet with new ideas about the family structure as far as African Americans are concerned. So you will receive the email with the notification and the Zoom link, and we look forward to having you come back and join us.
Can you repeat that date one more time, Ms.
February
Evelyn?
21st.
February 21st, same time?
You know what? I need to work out the time with her. I'm going to say yes for right now, but it will be that Sunday.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. This is awesome. So you guys have a great afternoon, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye. Oh, if the indivisible leadership team will stay on board just for a split second. Yeah, I won't keep you long.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
you.
So good to
Bye.
see all your faces.
Yeah, bye. And the team, Ivy, Zoe, and Paul, you guys are spectacular. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for everything. Yeah.
Bye. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Have a good week.
Okay, Michelle, we're just going to have a meeting with our leadership team now, and I will be in touch with you as soon as possible. I can't hear you. We're just going to have a meeting with our local leadership team now, and I'll be in touch with you later on. Okay, all right. Thanks for popping on. Really appreciate it. Okay, you guys can unmute. But thank you guys always for your support. I'm just really, I just feel so blessed today because this was, I didn't know what to expect because I heard him speak a little bit, but not that much. I didn't know exactly how he was going to connect with our objectives, but I think it was just spot on. Yeah. So thank you guys for your questions, your support, and all of the above and below and beyond. Really appreciate it. Just want to kind of bring us up to speed because we do have another meeting next Sunday, that organizational meeting that we were talking about that Rich suggested. If you get upset about a back-to-back meeting, take it out on him. He's tough skin. He can do it. He can deal with it. It's all Rich's fault. You know how those guys are named Richard? They always create problems. Always.
That's for sure.
So anyway, let me just kind of bring you up to date on the collecting the funds for Steve. When I think about the way she, when I talked to her on the phone and talked to him on the phone, you know, I'm a tearjerker, so I just had to like not breathe while she was talking. They are absolutely so appreciative beyond words, you know, and it's, to me, it was nothing. It's like, why not? So anyway, we raised $160. And I went to Aldi and bought, at the time I went to Aldi, there was $115. And that was Monday, I believe it was. When I came back from delivery, there was another $50, $165 what it was. So I bought $109 worth of canned goods and spaghetti, crackers, and things like that, and delivered it. You guys might have seen the photo already. I think I put it on Facebook. It might still be on there. I'm not real sure. But they were just extremely appreciative. And so what I mentioned to her is that we would do a certificate and present that to him too before his memory goes too far. Because she said right now he's in phase 2. And I talked to him on the phone, and you know, he knew who I was. But the one thing that he said was that he was about to call me, which he really wasn't about to call me. I might have been on his mind. He said, oh, I was just about to pick up the phone and call you, but he really wasn't, you know? And so I want to be able to get this certificate to him before he can still remember.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm gonna, there's a certificates on Canva that I can use and print up. And what I'm going to do, do you guys have access to a digital signature? Can you sign your name digitally?
I don't.
Not that I know of. I don't know.
Okay, so I'll just put on there the indivisible leadership team, and I'll sign my name under it. Would that be okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. All right.
Well, maybe and then just list our names, first names. That's all. After you sign.
Yeah, I can just press them on there. Yeah, I can actually do that on Canva. I can write your names on there on Canva, and then I'll sign mine. I'll use a digital signature for mine. Okay, I think that's about it as far as us meeting today, because we really went over time a little bit, but I just need to make sure everyone's on board for that little meeting on next Sunday.
That's at noon?
At noon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I read through in a couple hours the other day, the new guide. Is that good enough for the meeting? That's why I thought we needed to do like ahead of time.
Probably not this time. I think we need to do our stuff before we do the guide. What do you think, Rich? Because
Yeah.
you had something else in mind.
No, I mean, that certainly can't hurt because that's going to inform how we think about organizing ourselves. But really, it's just about what are our well, do we want to revise the mission statement? Do we need to relook at that sort of stuff? Do we want to issue a press release? Do we want to think about revitalizing the facilitator structure? What do we want to do? And then, I mean, just ourselves, and then next steps, you know, based on things that Lewis has said, presentations we've talked to, what's our agenda? What are we going to do?
Yeah, I think for sure we have to revisit our vision statement because 45's name and us fighting against him is still in that, you know.
That's
so
true. That's a
we'll
good
have to certainly do that. And as far as revitalizing the facilitators, we talked before about I don't know if we need all of them, but somehow they need to kind of like stay part of our vision because this is what we're doing. But I think we also have to focus on what National and Move On are doing. And basically right now, the focus that we have is the focus that National and Move On has as far as education, immigration for sure, the environment, and diversity. I think all of those are still in the forefront of both of those progressive organizations. So somehow we need to keep those in focus, maybe not have, it maybe need to be more collective than just separate. I don't know. That's something we can talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know they're also, I don't know. I think I said it without going into any further details.
You've got problems with one of us or something? Are we on the bad list? Is that what you're trying to say?
Rich, I have to tell you something.
You're getting there.
Uh-oh. I'm pushing it. I'm pushing it. All right. She's going to digitally sign my name onto that bad list.
No, no one's on my bad list. Absolutely no one, except I'm kidding. No, I was just thinking about some other trainings that you guys are really, it's something that I need to do myself. Yeah. Oh, I know. This is what it was. Okay. And I'm going to ask you this before I go into to learning more about it. Indivisible has this new initiative. Well, it's been around for a while, and it's called Action Something. That's just how much I really care about it. Can't remember the name of it. But anyway, what it entails is us giving our email list to, let's say, Indivisible Illinois, and they would have access to all of our email addresses. And let's say, for example, today our event comes up, then they would push out alerts about this event, but they would also have access to all of our information. I mentioned this to you guys before, like a year and a half ago. And I just remember a response only from Bob. So I want to kind of hear what you, he's shaking his head already, what you have, what your thoughts are. You don't know a lot about it, but in other words, we'd be giving up our private information to, and I asked one person about this. I said, who has access to our email? And they couldn't tell me exactly. No. And so I have a training coming up on February 9th to find out more about it. It's like a 20-minute call with the girls in charge. And I personally right now don't feel comfortable doing that. Just with what I know, which is very limited. And this phone call on the 9th might bring more light to what they're talking about. But just the idea though, of your email being here, there, and yonder, what do you think? It's a very ambiguous question, and because I don't have all the information.
You need more details.
Yeah.
But in other words, without proper guide rails, the answer's got to be no. But you need more details because I know there's nothing wrong, I don't think, with event publication or promulgation, or even us hearing about events, but that's got to be it. And when you're talking group information, group emails, group discussions, it's like, nah, that's private, I think.
Okay.
That's my reaction to it. Not a problem with publicizing or getting more connected, but that doesn't mean access to everything that we do and all our personal stuff, I think.
Yeah.
I would potentially give them a list of emails of people who I think would be interested in this kind of stuff, but I would never give anybody my access to all my email addresses. No, that's inappropriate, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. What do you guys think, Rich and Blair?
If you don't mind, putting in the time to find out more about it, that would be good, because it's not entirely clear to me what the advantage to us is, why we would want to. So I guess I want to understand that better.
That's exactly a question that I have. And I've asked that question and I didn't get from the state level, and I didn't receive a response that really made any sense to me. And it was the response that I received was so that we can all know what's going on with each other's groups. There's like 3 state Facebook groups, and you post stuff on there, nobody looks at it. So I actually stopped posting, so you don't really know what's going on with me. And I want to see how this is going to make it different. It's going to be more just for events. If it is, there might be, some good from it. What do you think, Kate?
I agree with Blair and everybody, collectively. It's kind of, I don't know that, I would like to hear about their, whatever events, but I don't know that we all need to be in each other's business all the time.
Yeah.
I don't quite see the purpose either.
I kind of feel that way too, because I'll give you an example, and this might be completely different from what I've been experiencing with one particular group. They have events sometimes 2 to 3 times a week. And we're on their Facebook group, and I promise you, every time they have an event, we get notified for it, but it doesn't align with what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because every individual group is going to be, they have that area of independence from national. And so I don't post them. Some of them are just like, I don't even know what this is. And so I don't know if that would be what would be addressing in this particular initiative. I'm hoping that it's not. I'm hoping it's going to be something that's going to be broader and better for us. I don't know, but I'll let you guys know though when I find out. Any concerns from you guys?
I appreciate your being conservative about it and not just, here you go, let's all be everybody's everything. So thank you for checking in.
Oh yeah, that just brought up another point too, because when I talked to that person, they wanted me to make a decision right on the spot. And this is what I told them. I'm serious. It's almost like I really have to go back and doubly appreciate how we organized. Because we said from the very beginning, we don't make these kind of decisions. Like, I can't make this decision without talking to you guys. But there was an expectation that because I am the chairperson that I should. And I said, no, that's not the way we do things. And then this person finally had to say, oh, that is the democratic way, isn't it? I'm thinking, duh. Well, yeah, how did you organize?
Duh.
Yeah. So, and Lisa sends her regrets. She's with her daughter in the city today.
Oh.
So, yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Tell her to look, give her an extra push to look at the recording, because Lewis was just tremendous. So,
and you know what? I've got to figure out how to get myself off now, because I'm also recording this message.